Hello, Capricorn. Welcome to Catalyst Energies and welcome to your new moon forecast. Wow, Capricorn. I just spent the last 15 minutes completely full stream of consciousness channeling this forecast for you, and I was like, wow. And then I looked down and I was like, it wasn't even recording. That's okay. I still have the imprint right here, and if anything, I will probably get it to be even more concise, which is probably something you want, Capricorn. So we're going to look at the main astrological themes for this new moon period. It's on the 23rd. It's at 1 to 2 degrees Capricorn. Chiron's going to station direct, and we're actually going to look at today, the 20th, the 21st, and the solstice, and just look at that time as well, because this is pretty strong for the Cap people right now. And if anything, this is a time for you to really focus on yourself, and not in the usual ways that the Capricorn person identifies with themselves, right? So the Capricorn signature is about power. It's about political power, social power, and a Capricorn person is going to exhibit traits and ways of adjusting to the world around them and feeling about things in a very no-nonsense, very much get down to brass tacks, get her done, kind of boss mode, right? That is the Capricorn signature, and that is based on the law of nature being the law of nature, right? This is the fractal of reality and the universe unfolding, and the Capricorn person identified with that entire structure and contributing themselves to that entire structure. So, of course, these make great leaders and political leaders, social leaders, and also despots, right? I mean, and people who are really identified with what it takes in order to accomplish some sort of goal. And it doesn't matter what the goal is, and that's important to understand. But the Capricorn person, nonetheless, is exhibiting and identified with this type of authority and leadership. So there are some really specific themes here, Capricorn, that we're going to take some time to go into and identify how important not only the solstice, right, regardless of where you are, the sun is still in conjunction with 0 degrees Capricorn in the zodiacal system, okay? So that regardless of sun or regardless of spring or winter solstice, the idea here is that the sun is reaching a pendulum point of opposition that is about to start swinging back, okay? And Pluto's been in your sign for many, many years, since 2008 in terms of Western astrology, okay? So as you can see in this chart here, much of the action with so little except for the moon, right, over the last couple of days I'd say probably the last week, as of now, has been there's not much going on in the top of the chart, which has to do with social identity, social expression, something that the Capricorn is naturally predisposed toward, okay? They really kind of find themselves and their balanced relationships through what they are offering in a social setting, okay? But you can see, Capricorn, that there isn't much going on other than, like I said, the South Node and the Moon in Scorpio, and Lilith in Cancer. So the full moon will be in Cancer, and that's going to be on the 6th of January. We're also going to see Mercury and Venus not only come into a conjunction in Capricorn, but Mercury will have stationed retrograde. And this connection with Mercury being retrograde in your sign, the sixth house for the Cap rising being Gemini, this retrograde of Mars, there's a pattern here, Capricorn, that's coming through here that is asking you to really be patient with yourself and to identify how important it is that your root system as an individual is actually firmly established, and that you are in complete alignment with the full meaning of that for you, because you yourself don't emerge in any of these things at the top of the chart successfully unless your root system is really strong. And Chiron is going to station direct at this new moon. at 2 degrees of Capricorn. And there's an invitation here for all of us, but especially for you, Capricorn, to realize as a person who is going to often assume a leadership position, take an authority position, project that type of boss mode to the world, and especially now that the solstice is here and you are identifying and you're shining a light as a provider in a lot of ways to the people out there. It's in relationship that you will be able to recognize truly your own ability to nurture, to protect, right? Not necessarily be the provider, but it's the protector, the nurturer, right? All those Cancerian themes in the 7th house for Capricorn, but how your root system is established, because you yourself, like I said, do not emerge successfully in your role as a leader or authority or a provider. And what does that mean? A provider is someone who is able to contribute to the overall whole and structure and power and institution of whatever it is that makes up our society, whether it's a culture, whether it's an economy, whether it's a family, right? Whether it's a religious structure or the church, right? The community and the ways that we all physically provide for each other, whatever it is. There's a lot of push and there's been a lot of frustration, I think, with the Mars retrograde in the 6th house and Gemini in the Capricorn person wanting to make, to actually get down to the change within the self, because Pluto's been here for years and the transformation has been incredibly deep. It has been long term. It has taken the Capricorn person through so many layers that they didn't even know was part of who they are, because it's so identified with the social structures that are being destroyed as a result of Capricorn. So there is this sense of let's go get on with it. And Mars in its retrograde, man, it has not been easy. It's either been the best case scenario here, I think, personally, in my own read, is that you've identified that you're not really walking backwards or going backwards in ideas or thoughts or even in your actions, right? It's merely a switchback as you are making your way up to this decision, right? Or to this place of commitment, right? So there's been a lot of ways this Mars retrograde, and I think for the Cap person that really wants to put this energy, this root system into action, I think it's been difficult, and to give yourself some time to exercise some patience, to value the retrograde of Mars in terms of your conscious practices, the way that you are analyzing your own thoughts, your conceptions, your process of discovery of yourself, right? I mean, the Capricorn person, because of this boss mode, is really not giving themselves often a lot of time to do this. But if you look at the chart, it's all down in the bottom of the chart. In the South Node, in the 11th house, right? It's just like we've been here. This is a default position at a soul level over to the collective voice or the voice of the people and being in tune with it and experiencing it. But really, Cap, I'm saying that it's all down in the bottom of the chart. It's all in the individual identity expression. So give yourself the patience and the time and the blessing of this. Now, the reason I say the root system is because I want to use this analogy, and I use it all the time. And so Capricorn is, in fact, the whole garden or the ecosystem. So you're identified with the whole ecosystem, not just any singular part of it, okay? And so the seed is the first house, and the soil is the second house, and the third house is that first sprout. And anybody who has grown anything knows that it's all well and good in those first three, and it's a very important time. But if that plant doesn't put a root system down, you can forget about flowers and fruit and propagation and harvest, right? So when we talk about the 4th house and the root system in general, this is the area, Cap. And with the holidays and a new moon right before Christmas, and Chiron stationing direct. Jupiter has moved into this house and is now going to be in a square at the solstice, right after the solstice will be in a square with the sun in your sign. So the challenge here is to realize that as much as you may want to put your outward action towards your works, your labors, your service, your reconstitution of yourself, your own challenges and facing them and put your energy towards them, there's something that is really drawing you back here to where is your root system? What is the quality of your root system? And I assure you, with Chiron stationing direct at this new moon, the real question is, are you going to let the triggers that are going to happen at this level, where's your vulnerability? What's your connection to your family and your home and family and origin? Does it protect you? Have you gained self-esteem? How is your character developed in this place? Where does your power come from personally within your family life, your spiritual community, your tribal or regional identity, your clan, your nation, right? Fourth house is all of those places where we feel secure and safe to be ourselves. The triggers are coming, right? Chiron stations direct. So you've done a lot of work on yourself, and Mercury coming into retrograde during this time, leading up to the full moon on the 6th, which will be in Cancer, right? Is about there's even more of this is an ally. In my opinion, this is an ally right now, especially because Mercury rules Gemini, the 6th house for Capricorn. There's more to be figured out. There's more exploration to do about the self and the ego, and the natural quincunx with the 1st house and the 6th house for everyone is the fact that our subjective projection of ourself doesn't seem to fit or to entirely have an impact on where. See, this is where we get lost here. We need the resource world around us in order to actually make real change with our subjective projection of self. And I think there's more to figure out. There's more work to be done. There's a sense of, yes, value of being this Capricorn person. There's going to be a strong identity, of course, as the sun comes into Capricorn. But the challenge will be that's all well and good. What's going down in this root system, because this is where the spark of life enters the Capricorn person, is in the personal life, the family life, in the place where you have grown and your character is developed. And you see where I'm going here. Because if there's no strong character here, and there is real issues in terms of the emotional development in the Capricorn person because of past issues, past family issues, it's not a safe environment at home, whatever it is, that's going to start. That has more impact on what is maturing and coming to fruition in the Capricorn person in terms of the way they look at reality and their ability to really make sense of themselves than the first 3 houses. And it's the same thing. The first 3 houses, it's a seed, you have soil, and you have sunlight, right? And that will get you really far, especially for the Cap person, because that 3rd house as Pisces it's so easy to just and very simple. I mean, the capacity for the Cap person to have a humanitarian perspective right in their everyday life, in their own mind. They conceptualize the world and the environment around them through the lens of spirituality, through humanitarianism, through compassion. But also a lot of delusion, a lot of false reality here. And with Neptune here, it's been very difficult to know what is, real and what is fantasy for the Capricorn person. What is humanitarian and truly a reflection of spiritual compassion and consciousness, or what is delusion? And, Jupiter, thankfully, being retrograde and coming all through this area last year, was holding a template of meaning for the Cap person. And now coming back into Aries it's kind of a test almost in some ways of the emergence here, right? And the bolt of lightning coming from Jupiter or Zeus, right? Bringing something to life. It's really just emerging. And there's so much potential for success or failure, even at the beginning of that root system. But what you've taken with you, what pattern, what archetype, in terms of your mind, your communication, and certainly what's right in front of you in your third house is now having a big impact on, the way that that pattern and that expansiveness of your root system in this area, right? You start to realize that your family comes from all life and all connection right in front of you is what allows you to identify your root system with the matrix of the ocean, right? The unconditioned, undifferentiated ocean of consciousness that is right in your mind. And the concept of brotherhood, compassion, forgiveness, it's right there. It's something that you can easily access through your own consciousness. So there's something very powerful that you can bring into this new moon period in this holiday season in particular, so that you identify still with that person that you are, but also to realize that in the process of attempting to maintain control over those group processes, the welfare, the social good, and truly your own identity, Capricorn, we may find ourselves destroying the very resources that have led to that consolidation of power to begin with. So with Chiron here, and especially because Mars rules your fourth house and is also in this retrograde here in Gemini, I think that Capricorn, to be patient, to trust the process, to realize that the world around you and the voice of the people can be, depending on what resonance you're connecting to at the civilization level, what gives you, Saturn is your ruler, is it not? In Aquarius like this, it is definitely can be very inert. It can be too much of an anchor. It can be something that really pulls you into the world around you. But in fact, it is something that I feel like is uplifting. It's something that gives you a sense of real power. So you don't have to necessarily rely exclusively on your own subjective experience of I am, so that when it does change, and it is absolutely changing. There's no doubt about it, that it's the voice of it's the resonance of the world around you through civilization and a sense of our connection to each other, our ideal connection to each other, that really can anchor you and give you that sense of determination and focus when your identity may be going through a crisis. And that's a big part of the sixth house, is not only going through the crisis, but how do you take that energy and how do you actually apply it and move resources around in order to purify and reconstitute yourself. It's not easy right now, Kat, but the fact that you are able to move through this type of experience is going to be a huge need for the people in your life that are also going to go through it. And this is where the nurturing part of who you are in relationship can really come forward. And I feel like that will be very obvious to you when we get to the full moon on the 6th. So let's just start looking day by day at the chart. The first thing I want to look at, obviously, here is this grand water trine today on the 20th with the moon in Scorpio and Lilith in Cancer. So Lilith is in Cancer. Also, too, if we look at some of the asteroids, we also know that Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom, goddess of strategy and war, she's also in Cancer, but is in a retrograde. So there does appear to be a strategic retreat back into to our relationships, Capricorn, and Lilith here as well, being that primal human template, something that is the perfect template of the feminine signature, the divine archetype of the feminine, which oftentimes as a person, we will find ways to create this space within ourselves, sometimes in destructive ways, sometimes completely ignoring that we are frustrated or feel cut off, but it's that void that is filled with the light of divinity. So Lilith is the keeper of the flame. So to have both of these here in Cancer does suggest on some level there is a bit of a, and they're both retrograde, by the way, both feminine energies, both goddess energies in their own right. And in this area, especially over here with the moon in Scorpio today, the south node, and bringing it down to Neptune and asteroid Juno in the third house. So all of these areas of water for the Cap person are, related to ultimately houses that have to do with our mind, our intellect, our mental energy in some way, shape, or form. And it's because when you, as a Cat person, I feel like when you are able to, when you conceptualize, when you conceptualize the world that you're in and your own consciousness, the world that you're in, your relationships, it is very fluid, right? It is very feminine because Capricorn is a feminine sign as well. And Capricorn is not about directing anything as opposed to contributing everything to the social good or the collective good. And so it requires a fluidness, I think, to all of these areas that have to do with the way that the mind works and consciousness applies itself. So this water trine is pointing really strongly down, obviously for the Cap person, down to the third house with Pisces, showing that, I would say, especially Juno, that there is a sense of trust and almost this hanged man energy to that is really being drawn out of this, and to realize that I think that there's something really strongly pulling the Capricorn person, to not forget about who they are in relationship, but also to realize that, and when I say like retreat into relationship, doesn't that look like there is something pulling down again to the bottom of the chart here about where's your personal power coming from, where's your root system coming from? And Cancer is the fourth house, like in the zodiac as a whole. So there's something about what's right in front of you, Capricorn. Everything is right in front of you. And when you start to see and respond to the world with that mentality that it's right here in front of you, you allow yourself to be vulnerable. You allow your character to be developed by where you into your personal or family life, your what's right in front of you, your spiritual energy. So, and then you are able to really tap into, I would say, your social voice, right? And there's a lot of power to that. And there's a sense here, a deep sensitivity, I would say, with the moon in Scorpio right now to the needs of that collective. And how, again, it comes back down to your relationship to yourself and what your individual process is. Because that's where it all starts for the Cap person. Okay, so if that stuff is not in line and there's not a identification with how important relationship is to bring out that nurturing part of you, then having a deep, direct experience or being willing to investigate or to know the truth about the social voice and to experience the communion of it, it becomes exploitive. It becomes all of the dark Scorpio things. So for those of you who are not involved in any of these things, just know that, again, it's pulling everything you need is right in front of you. The entire experience of spirit is right in front of you. It's just a matter of tapping into it, okay? So as we go into, we're going to come into the solstice itself, and you can see the ways that Lilith continues to have this really deep primal connection to your relationship. And it can go either way. You can get hyper protective of it as a means to kind of exert some sort of authority or control. Munchausen syndrome is a big deal when it comes to Capricorn or Cancer, the dark side of the mother, right? And so it's important to, again, you may find yourself exhibiting too much control over relationships in an effort to make sense of yourself, to establish or project yourself out into the world, and to exert your authority into this situation. And that's not your job in relationship. When you become the Cancer person in relationship, Capricorn, you are a mother, right? You are meant to take the role of protector, but not controller or provider. That is up to the individual or society or whatever that you are, your clients, your customers, your children, your family members. It doesn't matter. It is what comes out of you and what's mirrored back to you in your relationship, okay? So this is going to be a theme, just with Lilith here and Pallas Athena in this area. And I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't pull into these areas, but you don't want to overdo it, as a means to, bypass your own feelings of being out of control, potentially, or losing a grip on control. Because I assure you, Pluto will have the final word on all of these things. So best to embrace the change within yourself, and see the vulnerability that actually is able to come through you, and how that has so much more impact on your relationships and ultimately, your offering to society than attempting to exhibit this authority and control in a way to control your relationships. That is a pretty dark side to it. And again, you can see that Chiron going direct in these areas is going to, it's just going to aggravate it so much more, along with the Mars retrograde. I mean, Capricorn, I think there's a lot of frustration. And this new moon, what a great time. Seriously, what a great time for you to set the intention of becoming the architect and provider of your own self, and not attempt to fall back on your relationships as a means to do that for you. And when you do that, the full moon will, there's going to be such a release point, but also a seed that germinates in a whole new way. Because as you change, Capricorn, so does the nature of you in relationships. And I think this is really, really powerful. So here's the 23rd. We've already gone past the full moon, but just for the sake of it, or the new moon, excuse me, for the sake of this report being an astrology report about the new moon, I guess we should look at the moment of the new moon on Friday the 23rd, right? So here on the east coast of the U.S., it'll be 5 a.m. The sun's not even up yet. We're still in this pattern of darkness from the solstice, right? The sun reaches this point of either peak or valley, depending on where you are, and then kind of remains at that point for a couple of days and then starts to swing back. So we're still in this dark moment, in this stasis. So this new moon is a reminder, hey, all the work I've been doing on myself, just remember that there's always the possibility of wasting so much of that if I use those resources to try to keep control over these things. But because even the structures that are organic, either the law of nature or society, is still subject to the law of nature. And if Pluto has not given you that insight by now, I assure you it will over the next couple of months. So, and this whole year really for the Capricorn people, because there will be that retrograde back into Capricorn in towards the fall that will just be the last wrap up of this stuff here. So patience, Capricorn. And you know what it takes to get something accomplished. You have that fearlessness, especially if you got Lear and Starseed, which is going to be all part of this with Venus, with Mercury, with their retrograde, of course, and the sun. So you know what it takes to get something done. You project that boss mode out into the world, and it's important that it doesn't destroy your relationships or keep you from having them or being vulnerable, because that's really where you shine. That's where you are animated, is in your personal, private life. This is where you can feel vulnerable and protected. It allows you then to be a protector and to allow others to feel vulnerable to be themselves. But you have to have that root system. So, and we saw this, after the solstice, Jupiter and the sun are in a square, and just naturally a Jupiter-sun square, you're going to have some cockiness and a sense of maybe too much sense of pride and joy about oneself. And again, there may be Jupiter that throws the thunderbolt here, 0 degrees Aries. It's an electric fire. It's the spark of life. And it could be a blessing or a curse, but it's coming either way. And it's going to challenge your sense of self, because it's most likely, especially with the holidays, I'm telling you, it's going to be family stuff for the Capricorn person, or wherever you feel like you are emotionally vulnerable or a little kid again, it's going to come out, and Chiron will be direct at this point now, at the new moon. So that perfect view of what it's supposed to feel like is immediately going to be polarized, and it's going to be even more of a tender kind of like, And if you've been doing your work with Chiron and retrograde, then you know what to expect, and you're ready to face it, and you're ready to identify those wounds and be willing to step out of that dichotomy of being a victim or being some sort of savior, and just accepting yourself, who you are, flaws and all, right? So, which is hard for Cap, because everybody kind of expects them to, just have all their shit together, and there's not a lot of room for vulnerability, but that's exactly what you need, because otherwise, if you don't have a root system, how are you going to provide for other people? Your 7th house in Cancer. That's a good point here. So, let's kind of just take a stroll here through the days. We're coming into the Christmas weekend. We see that Venus is, the moon in Capricorn is going to make all the connections to Venus and Mercury and Pluto through Christmas Eve here in the West, if that's something that you celebrate. And there's definitely connections. There's already been connections with Uranus. Ooh, we should talk about that, because the thing is Uranus and the North Node in the 5th house. This is your voice, Capricorn. This is your voice. This is your authenticity. This is where you take creative risks. This is where you feel your sorrow, your pain, your joy, your pride, your you at the center of your experience, your voice, your resonance, your heart space. And this is the area of your growth. This is the area of your soul growth for all of us right now. And yes, there is an ambition, but you actually get some sort of joy out of being able to carry this load. And it's, having Uranus in the 5th house is not exactly providing a lot of stability in the resources or the value or the meaning of it. And that's because there's not a lot to show you where you're going, as so much as there's not a lot to confirm the conditions of where you're going in your own creativity and your own authenticity, right? Your voice, Capricorn. But you also can feel the draw in this area to keep going. And it's going to be when Uranus stations direct later, not that far from now, actually, where I suspect that there will be an active revolutionizing of your own voice, Capricorn. But for now, it's really these under the surface, in the tectonic plates of your own heart, in the areas underneath that you are working with. I think that this will become much more outwardly revolutionary, outside of the box creativity, being willing to be inspired in some ways creatively. That's going to be coming. And in the meantime, all of these Capricorn areas are going to be in a complete trine to it in terms of your identity. So the way that you project yourself out into the world as a provider, as someone who is aware of and invested in the welfare of everyone, and certainly in the ability to really understand the complex nature of who you are as part of that is very stabilizing in terms of your voice, right? It's not that there's anything wrong with who you are as a Cap. In fact, it has a lot to do, obviously, that first and fifth house is strongly connected, and there's a stability here. There's a sense of value here. There is a security and a sense of aesthetic beauty and harmony with Taurus in the fifth house. There's a lot of pleasure and, like I said, expression when it comes to just being in harmonic resonance with what is around you, and you're really able to naturally fulfill yourself, and you're very naturally fulfilled, I would say, with your creative expressions as well. So it hasn't been easy, but it's also been, there's going to be a lot of revolutionary energy that's coming through that, your voice here, Capricorn, coming up. So anyway, we're going through Christmas here. It kind of mellows out a little bit, and the moon comes into Aquarius. And so Christmas time, you become very sensitive to the voice of the people, so to speak. And you may find yourself being more of a mouthpiece to those collective energies than anything else. But as we get into, we're going to get to that first quarter moon, especially because it's also going to be in Aries, so it's really going to bring this up. But in the meantime, I feel like this time period of the moon moving through the first three houses is really just allowing you to tap into emotionally, intuitively to those areas, the voice of the people, the sensitivity to the collective unconscious and humanity, and your ability to conceptualize that almost so directly, in a place that has it's very mutable, but it's also very transcendent, right? Very astral, not exactly very cognitive or not very empirical, but very very artistic and spiritual and dreamy as well. I think that's really nice. I think it's going to be a nice time for you ultimately. Right after Christmas, early in the week on the 26th, 27th, 28th, this is where we're going to start seeing some things pick back up again, and specifically on the first quarter moon, which is the 29th, next Thursday. So the moon's going to come, it's going to pass Neptune. And again, it'll be very easy to get kind of, emotionally pulled into substantiating something if you are not clear with yourself about what it is that you are giving your precious mental energy to. So that's important to keep in mind. But then you see here that the moon's going to come into Aries. It's going to meet Jupiter, and before it meets Chiron, it's going to square the sun at 8 to 9 degrees of Aries. And so this is an interesting square. So just in general, this is going to be a time where we go from that full moon, or that new moon. I keep calling it a full moon. I go from that new moon in Capricorn right after the solstice. We come into the weekend leading up to New Year's, according to the calendar, the Gregorian calendar, and we find here a square again in this area. So the sensitivity to these areas for you is going to get very heightened. It's going going to, again, pull a lot of your attention in the periphery. You have to stay very concentrated on the full pattern right here through your inner vision. And because it's going to be a reorganization of what we're doing, right? And for you, there's a sense of wanting to trust and to be in harmony with what is unfolding. I think that's even more the case, and really identified with the pattern that is unfolding to the point where you feel like that heaven is within you, and you're going to be really radiating it really strongly. What's interesting here is the seed point of and the spark of life that comes through you in this area is going to ask. It's very interesting. I feel like that there's going to be a real pull here in terms of, identifying with this new seed of experience that we really are going to be much more engaged with when we have the vernal equinox. And so there's a sensitivity and a sense of staying focused on what's coming and and also what is emerging in this impulse to be, and how we are infused with a spark of life. And for you, Capricorn, in your most intimate environment and where your character develops in your home and family. And the square here to the sun, it's... Again, I feel like, are really going to be shining very brightly, as you often do this time of year, as the sun comes into your sign, in a way that is going to, the resonance is going to be almost like divine and sacred. And it's about you yourself being in this attunement with the unfolding of the materium. But it's... And this is also where Venus and Mercury, they come into a conjunction, and then Mercury stations retrograde. So again, I feel like that this will be a very glorious moment where you'll feel divinely connected, Capricorn. And I'm not suggesting that you won't, but there will be this kind of nagging feeling of like, okay, well, I am outwardly expressing myself very strongly as this divine attunement, but there is this need to reorient what I'm doing based on this sense of the picture, right? The full picture, and the ability to concentrate on the root system. What's coming, right? What is emerging that is new, that has a new template. And I think this has a lot to do here now with Mercury stationing retrograde, in that there's going to be a review, right? A review period about who you are based on all of these mechanisms of tradition and culture. And Mercury and Venus coming together, there's a lot of value that will be identified within yourself about these types of cultural traditions that have been built up over many generations, over many institutions, many versions of you in some ways. Like, you yourself have become like a very refined artistic process, and there's a lot to value about this. And Mercury stationing retrograde certainly may put some doubt about that, but don't take it that way so much as maybe being willing to really get into the why now of who you are, with the value of that progression never leaving. It's just that you're just going to have much more of just a much more investigative, curious, exploratory type of problem solving about yourself when it comes to this, right? Like, maybe the value of this prayer rug is something that comes to mind, and maybe it's you that has allowed for all of these things to come to fruition. But there's a new version of yourself coming online, so there's more to explore here and discover discover about yourself. And it's the moon. There's that moon in Aries, this first quarter moon, that's going to draw your energy, excuse me, down to the root system, and how that is like a new inner power. I think that's coming, and you have to actually still be able to see the full picture and concentrate on the crystal ball, so to speak, of this area, and not get so caught up necessarily in identifying with those structures about yourself that are also being subjected to the Pluto metamorphosis, because it's continuing on, and you don't want to, this also can be like if you are in alignment to the resonance of all of those structures that are falling away, you can find yourself identified as like, a doom and gloom as well, and just being all is lost. That's okay. There is something brand new emerging in where your power is coming from, and this is going to draw that down there. Again, Capricorn, it's going to be an interesting time for you, and you are really the avatars in some ways and representatives of this process for all of us. So thank you for being yourself. And so this is coming through now, into the weekend of New Year's, of course, and then the moon is going to move through the fifth house, right? So there's a lot of moodiness with the moon in the fifth house, and some emotional stubbornness about what is going on in terms of your creative voice. Maybe it's important that you give yourself an opportunity to window shop some alternatives here in terms of, well, how do I express myself? Who am I becoming? What is the blossoming of my own nature? Perhaps it's just a willingness to do a little window shopping, to see what other versions of yourself can come through, what other types of flowers can come through in terms of your creativity, and taking, some sort of social or creative risks. Now, so Mercury is fully retrograde at this point. So just know that, like, making decisions about yourself, even attempting to, move forward with the ways that you are working on yourself, may be even more seemingly put on hold, or having to review or go back over some things. So again, patience is going to, and a sense of humor, right? Sense of humor about yourself is going to be primary, especially you, Capricorn, because you just take it all to yourself so seriously. And Jupiter is going to be like, hey, don't try not to take it so seriously. Maybe you need to just laugh at yourself and objective, in an attempt to, decondition yourself and look at yourself objectively within the lens of your own inner life, instead of getting caught up in what isn't perfect and what isn't perfect, and what feels like a diversion from that perfect view of family life, or whatever it is for you, fourth house. So that's New Year's Day. We see these things. And of course, that's also the day, let me go back, I'm sorry, I missed one of the most important things, is really coming into the square with the sun in your sign to Chiron. So if that's not going to aggravate that feeling, I don't know what will. So just be aware of that as well. Moving through Monday the 2nd, and the moon's in the 6th house, right? And so you're becoming really sensitive to, and really kind of identified emotionally, I would say, with this work that you're doing on yourself. And Venus has now moved into Aquarius, has moved into the 2nd house. So Venus can get very possessive over things when she's in the 2nd house, but she also really brings that sense of beauty and harmony and value from a relational and creative project perspective, right? The voice of the people becomes very important to Venus and to you, really, as you come into the as she starts to relate to the world around her. So you may find yourself becoming almost kind of like stepping into that area and being some sort of I'm really struggling with the right word here. I just get this kind of royal introduction, this Empress energy in terms of Aquarius, where she's possessive, but in a way that values the voice of the people and values that resonance as the resource and doesn't take it for granted. Oh, that's what I was looking for, right? And really values it. And so I really feel that for you, Capricorn, as Venus comes into Aquarius, valuing the ideal spiritualized civilization, the resonance of the collective as a resource, especially with your ruler here also in Saturn. So that's, coming out of New Year's Day into the 4th, and we're working up towards our full moon here. So, there is a trine to Uranus coming up to this point, which is, again, something that you can really identify with the need to work at this. And I think that will be very stabilizing for a voice or an area of pride that doesn't really know where it's headed yet, just knows that we're moving forward, okay? And that can be very difficult. And so there's a sense of exercise. There's a sense of really needing to keep working the Capricorn identity, which is really about working together so that you don't just kind of give up on yourself, right? Because there is change happening in this area of what your passion really is. It's just when you change, everything else around changes. We also see here that what else is going on? Venus is in a sextile to Jupiter as well. And so, yes, there may be some unexpected changes in the world around you that, unexpected bolts of lightning. But again, there is something to be said for not taking it seriously, seeing it as a reflection of yourself in your inner life and in terms of who you identify with and how you're in your character, really. So that's going to be for all of us, but what an opportunity, considering it'll be in the world of resource, to have kind of an unexpected connection from Jupiter and the Thunderbolt, right? And so to keep a sense of humor, Capricorn, it's really going to be very important, I think, moving forward for you. And really what I want to do is look at this full moon on the 6th. That's the big one here with the moon in Cancer, right? And so, again, I think some sort of throwing off the shackles, right? Like in the Devil card, for instance, you yourself throwing off the shackles of old identities and something really beautiful in you and that you can only see in the mirror of relationship is going to start forming, start presenting itself, start growing. And that is absolutely amazing. And it is very close to Uranus, right? There's a trine and a sextile to Uranus. So it's very much connected to, again, your voice, your creativity, your passion, your devotion as an individual, being the blossoming of yourself through the light of your own vital energies. So this is very beautiful, Capricorn. And there's still more work to go, right? I mean, there really is, because you still have Mercury and Mars both retrograde, but they're soon going to be moving forward. And in the meantime, I think there's a big breakthrough and a huge release point for the Cap person from unbearable pressures of the overlay of false institutions or the old guard, and really just coming into who you naturally are. And that, again, is going to be, you're only going to see what's growing within you through the lens of relationship or the mirror of relationship. And that can be any type of relationship as long as it's an interpersonal relationship. So, Capricorn, I was like, oh, I'm just going to do a half hour, and look at it. It's already almost an hour. So lucky you. If you are interested in getting your own personal forecast for the upcoming new moon, or if you're a Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising, it also is extended to you. You can go to my website and book the Lunar Transit Forecast sale. There's a bookings tab on my website. It's linked in the description box below. Everything you need is at the website, what my current offerings are, how to book them, if there's any type of promo code. In fact, if you're not on my email list, you can do that today, because I will be putting out my monthly, well, I do about 3 emails a month, letting you know what's offered, what my current specials are, and I'm going to be offering a really deep discount to everybody on my mailing list. So if you're not already on there and you want to get a deep discount on other services, not this service, this is something that's already discounted, you can do that. And so Capricorn and Cancer people, this sale rate for the lunar transit. So we're just looking at the month. But if you're interested in looking at the whole solstice season and you get on my mail list, or you're already on there and you get that deep discount, you can get access to your seasonal forecast at an even deeper discount. Solstice to equinox. It's $99. It's already discounted at $99. But if you're on my email list, you'll get a promo code that will give you even more of a discount. And this is going to look at the full season, and that's your natal chart, your progressions, your starseed markings. It's an overall forecast for this. And if you are a Cap or Cancer rising or Sun or Moon, then you know this season always has an impact, because you yourself are identified with these peaks and valleys of the amount of sunlight we get. So that's an option as well. So my friends, thank you so much for being here, Capricorn. I truly appreciate all of you so very much. Have a wonderful holiday week. Have a great new moon. You are doing great, Capricorn. It's powerful change that is coming and has been happening for a while. So you're on the home stretch, I would say, in a lot of ways. And just give yourself a little patience. You don't have to hold the world up on your shoulders like Atlas, even though you may feel like that. And just know that you are still naturally and organically evolving, and to be in alignment with that may take some measure of destruction of old identity patterns that are aligned with the larger social patterns that are going away. So, my friends, thank you so much for being here. I will see you on the next forecast. Take care, Capricorn.